Count the cars. That's the whole thing. When it's over, when it's your turn, there's a number that sums up your entire life more honestly than your bank balance ever could. And it's the number of cars that follow the hearse. You don't get to see it. That's the cruel part. It's the one statistic about your life you're guaranteed to miss. Every other number you get to check. You can watch your bank balance climb your whole life. You can see the house get bigger, the title get longer, the number in the account do the thing you spent 40 years making it do. But the one number that actually totals you up, the room, the cars, the count of people who stopped what they were doing because you were gone, that one gets tallied in a room you're not in, on a day you can't attend, and then it's over, and nobody even tells you the figure. So the only chance you'll ever have to influence it is now, blind, on faith, without ever seeing the result. So let's look at it now while you still can. Same man, 6 incomes. 0, 30,000, 60, 100, 250, a million a year. Except this time we're not watching how people treat him while he's alive. We're watching who shows up after he's not. And the turnout is going to do something you don't expect. It's not going to climb with the money. It's going to move on its own for reasons that have nothing to do with the number in the account. And by the end, you'll see that the size of a funeral measures exactly one thing, and it isn't wealth, and it isn't even how much you were loved. It's something stranger, and you can start building it today. And I should say at the start what this video is not. It's not going to tell you that money is bad, or that rich funerals are sad and poor funerals are beautiful, because that's a lie broke people tell themselves, and rich people pay to hear. Money is genuinely good. It buys safety, options, the ability to help the people you love in ways that matter. This video isn't an argument against any of that. It's an argument about a specific thing money quietly trades away while it's busy being useful. A thing you don't notice leaving, because it leaves in the same motion that brings the money in. 0. The man who died with nothing. The room is small because he couldn't afford a big one. A modest service paid for by a collection, the kind where an envelope goes around and people put in what they can. And it's full, not with important people, with the guy he helped move apartments 4 times, the neighbor he shoveled out every winter without being asked, the friend he talked off a ledge at 2 in the morning more than once, for free, because he had nothing else to give, and so he gave the thing that's actually scarce, which is time and presence and showing up. That's what a man with no money spends. He can't buy anyone anything, so everything he ever gave was the real thing. Hours, attention, his actual self. And it turns out people remember that with a precision that money never buys. And there's a purity to poverty here that nobody likes to admit, because admitting it sounds like romanticizing being broke, which I'm not doing. Being broke is mostly just hard. But it does one thing cleanly. It strips away every possible ulterior reason anyone could have for being in your life. Nobody's around a man with nothing for what they can get. There's nothing to get. So the entire population of his relationships is pre-filtered down to people who are simply there for him, because no other kind of person bothers to stay. He can't buy loyalty, so all the loyalty he has is real. It's the one advantage of the bottom, and it's invisible until the very end, when it's the only thing that shows up. The room is small and nobody in it is checking their phone. They're wrecked. Every person in that room lost something they can't replace, because what he gave them wasn't transferable and wasn't for sale and is now simply gone. Count the cars. There are a lot of them, and every single one is there for him, not for his position, not for appearances. There's no appearance to keep up at the funeral of a man who had nothing. Everyone there is there because they want to be, which is the only attendance that counts. And think about what a strange, pure signal that is. There is no reason on earth to attend the funeral of a man who had nothing, except that you cared about him. There's no networking to do, Nobody important is watching. No box to be seen ticking. Attendance at a poor man's funeral is the most honest vote a human being can cast, because it costs a morning and returns absolutely nothing. And the room was full, which means he'd spent his life accumulating the only wealth that shows up when there's no other reason to. Remember this room. We're going to come back to it, because everything that follows is going to be measured against it, whether the man on each rung knows it or not. This small room, with the collection envelope and the wrecked faces and the lot full of people who came for no reason but him. This is the number to beat. And the strange thing, the thing that makes this whole video work, is that it turns out to be very hard to beat. And it gets harder the more money you have. And the man who said it had the least money of anyone we're going to meet. 30,000, bigger service. He could afford a little. And the room is full again, but the fullness has changed composition slightly, and you have to be paying attention to catch it. There are co-workers now. Some of them genuinely liked him. Some of them are there because you go, because it's the decent thing, because they'll want the same courtesy someday. That's not an insult. It's just a different kind of attendance starting to mix in with the real kind. But the core is still there. The people who'd have come whether he had 30,000 or nothing. The friendships he built in his 20s, when he had no money and all the time in the world to build them, are load-bearing now, and they hold. That phrase matters all the time in the world, because that's the raw material, and he had it in abundance precisely because he had no money, and the two facts are connected. Broken Young is the richest anyone ever is in the one currency that builds a funeral. Endless unclaimed evenings. Whole weekends with nothing to protect. The capacity to spend 6 hours doing nothing in particular with another person, which is the only way a real friendship has ever been made. He was pouring a foundation in his 20s and didn't know it because it felt like just hanging around. This is still a good funeral. The ratio's still right. Mostly people who loved him, a few who came out of duty. He spent his 30,000 a year on a life that had people in it, and the people came. The ratio. Hold on to that word, because it's the real measurement, not the raw number. A funeral isn't scored by how many chairs are filled. It's scored by what fraction of the room would have come regardless of your title, your money, your usefulness to them. At 0, that fraction was basically 1. Everyone there was real. At 30,000, it's still high. And what we're actually going to watch, rung by rung, is that fraction falling quietly while the total number of chairs goes up. The room filling and thinning at the same time until you get a packed house that's mostly empty of the only thing that matters. 60,000. And here's the first thing nobody warns you about. The funeral at 60,000 is, in one specific way, the richest of them all. And it's for a reason that's got nothing to do with the money and everything to do with the age. Because 60,000 is midlife. And midlife is the last time your friendships are still the ones you made, before they become the ones you merely kept. The people in this room were forged. The friend from the job 20 years ago. The couple you and your spouse have had dinner with every month for a decade. The guy whose kids grew up alongside yours. These are relationships with real hours in them. Thousands of hours, accumulated slowly, back when you still had slow hours to give. Count the cars. It's the fullest the lot will ever be, and nobody in that room can tell you his salary because it never came up, because he was too busy being present to perform. That's the peak, right there, at $60,000 a year. And just like every other peak on this channel, nobody in it knows it's the peak while they're standing in it. And there's a reason it peaks here specifically, and it's almost mathematical. Below 60,000, some people can't make it. The cousin who couldn't afford the trip, the friend working the shift she couldn't get covered. Above 60,000, he starts losing the time to make new ones. $60,000 at midlife is the exact intersection where he has enough money that everyone he loves can physically get to the room, and not yet so much that he's stopped making people who'd want to. It's a window. It closes. And it closes so slowly that he mistakes the closing for nothing happening at all. 100,000. The funeral is nicer, better venue, better flowers, more of everything you can purchase. And the room is fuller and emptier at the same time. More people came. That's true. But something in the ratio has tipped. And if you'd been to the funeral at 60, you'd feel it immediately. There are people here who knew him as a title. There are people here from the network, professional relationships, real ones, but professional. People who respected him, people who dealt with him. Here's what happened, and it happened so quietly he never noticed. Somewhere after 60,000, he got busy. The climb demanded it. And the hours he used to spend building the load-bearing friendships got reallocated to the career that was funding the nicer life. And you cannot build a 2 a.m. friendship in the margins of a busy life. Those get built in wasted time. And he stopped having wasted time around age 40. Wasted time. Say it kindly because it's the most valuable thing he ever owned, and he spent his whole climb learning to eliminate it. Every productivity system he adopted, every optimized calendar, every hour he reclaimed from doing nothing, he experienced each one as a win. A small victory over sloth. And each one quietly demolished a little more of the exact substance the room at the end is built from. You cannot be efficient and accumulate 2 a.m. friendships. The friendship is made of the inefficiency. It's made of the wasted hour. When he killed the wasted hour, he was killing the raw material, one productive afternoon at a time, and calling it progress. So the friendships from before still hold. But there are fewer new ones of the real kind, because after a certain point, he was making contacts instead of friends, and contacts come to the funeral. And they sign the book, and they leave, and they mean it. And it isn't the same thing. And here's the test. If you ever want to run it on your own life, how many people would come to your funeral if it were held at an inconvenient time, in a hard-to-reach place, with nothing afterward? No reception, no meal, no networking, nothing to be gained by anyone. That number is your real number. Everything above it is people attending an event. The man at 60,000 had a huge real number. Every rung above him grows the total attendance and shrinks the real number underneath it. And he'll never know the difference because he won't be there to run the test. Count the cars. More than ever, fewer of them wrecked. 250,000. Now the funeral is an event. It's well attended in the way an opening is well attended. There are people here he did business with. There are people here who are, even now, even at this, aware of who else is here. There's a little bit of network happening in the back of the room, gently at his funeral, and he'd probably have understood it, because he did the same thing at other people's. The family is here, and they're grieving, and their grief is real. But it's complicated in the way we talked about in another video. He gave them things instead of hours toward the end. And now they're standing at a service for a man who provided for them impeccably and was in a way none of them can say out loud today, slightly unknown to them. The saddest seat at a rich man's funeral is in the front row. The front row is where the family sits, and by 250,000, the family is often grieving a provider more than a person. He was good to them, impeccable even, on paper. He paid for everything. He was present for the expensive, irreplaceable things and absent for the cheap, repeatable ones, which is to say absent for the actual texture of the days, which is to say absent for the part where a person is genuinely known. So they cry, and the crying is real. And underneath it, there's a question none of them will say today and some of them will carry for years. Did I actually know him? Or did I just know what he did for us? That question, in the front row, is the saddest seat in the building. Count the cars. Lots. Expensive. And if you could somehow poll the lot, if you could ask every driver honestly, why are you here? A real percentage would give you an answer that has the word respect in it And respect is a fine thing, but it is not the thing that was in the room at zero. Respect fills a large room and leaves it cold. That's the discovery of the upper rungs. You can earn the respect of hundreds of people, build something impressive enough, and they'll come sincerely to pay it. And respect will get them to the parking lot, and it will not get a single one of them to fall apart. Grief and respect are different substances. Respect is what people feel for what you did. Grief is what people feel for the loss of who you were to them, specifically in the unpurchased hours. Only one of them wets a handkerchief, and it isn't the one the money buys. 1 million a year, the biggest funeral of all. It might be in the paper. There might be a notable name or two. The venue is significant. The flowers are absurd. And here is the loneliest arithmetic in this entire video. The room is full of people, and a stunning number of them are there for what he was, not who he was. They're there because of the company, the position, the name, the fact of the thing he built. Take the money away. Imagine he'd built all of it and then lost it all a year before he died, and half this room evaporates. They came for the institution, and the institution had a funeral, and they attended it. That's the test you can almost run in your head, standing in any room at any rung. Who's here for the person, and who's here for the position? And the terrible thing about the top of the ladder is that the man himself often can't tell the difference anymore, because the money has been part of him for so long that he's stopped being able to imagine anyone encountering him without it. He can't separate the two, so he can't know who's real, so he dies not knowing which half of the 400 would have stayed. The four at the back know. They knew him before there was anything to be here for. They're the only ones whose presence means precisely what presence is supposed to mean. And he'd built the institution instead of the friendships, deliberately over decades, each choice sensible at the time. Every late night at the office instead of the dinner. Every relationship optimized into a transaction. Every friend who slowly became a contact because a contact was more useful and he had less and less time for anything that wasn't. He didn't sell his friendships for money in one dramatic moment. He let them depreciate slowly by underuse while he compounded the thing that could be compounded. And the market for grief does not accept the asset he chose to build. His kids introduce him even now, even in the eulogy, by what he did. And somewhere in that enormous, impressive, well-catered room, there are 4 people who are actually physically unable to stop crying. And they're the ones who knew him before, from the beginning, from zero. The 2 AM people, the ones who'd have come to the small, sad room with the collection envelope, the ones for whom the million never mattered because they signed on when the number was nothing. 4 of them, in a room of 400. And he'd have traded the 400 for 40 more of the 4 in a heartbeat, at the end if anyone had offered. But nobody can offer that, because the 4 aren't for sale and never were. You could not, at 70, having built the whole empire, go out and buy even one person who'd known you at 0. That window closed decades ago. The 4 he has are the 4 he happened to make before he got busy. And there will never be a 5th, because a 5th would require a version of him with empty evenings. And that man stopped existing around the $100,000 mark and is not coming back. At 0, the whole room was those people. At 1 million, there are 4. And they're standing in a crowd of people who are very sincerely, very respectfully there for a brand. So what does the size of a funeral actually measure? Run all 6 rooms back, and the pattern isn't the money. The money made the funerals bigger and made a smaller and smaller fraction of the room real. Every rung added attendees and diluted them. The lot got fuller as the grief got thinner. What actually fills a funeral, the real way, the wrecked people way, is one thing. And it's the least purchasable thing there is. It's hours. Unpurchased, unhurried, unproductive hours, given to people for no reason, back when you had them to give. That's the entire equation. The man at zero was rich in the only currency a funeral accepts, and he didn't know it, and he spent it freely because he had nothing else to spend. Every rung up bought him more money and less of the raw material that funerals are actually made of, because the money took the hours, and the hours were the thing. You cannot buy a 2 a.m. friendship at 50. There's no market for it. It can only be built slowly, in wasted time, by someone who had wasted time to give. And the tragedy of the whole latter is that the wasted time is most abundant at exactly the age when you have the least money, and it disappears at exactly the rate your income climbs. The man who dies at zero and fills the room did nothing clever. He just never got busy enough to stop showing up. He had one asset his whole life, time. And he spent all of it on people because it was the only thing he had, and at the end the people came back and spent their grief on him in full, with no dilution, because that's how that particular currency works. It's paid back exactly as it was given. That's the exchange rate nobody can cheat, and it's the fairest one in the world. Money can be inherited, married into, stumbled onto, or stolen. The currency a funeral runs on cannot. There is no shortcut, no lump sum, no way to acquire it late once you realize you need it. It only ever accrues one way, an hour at a time given freely and remembered. You are at every moment of your life either making deposits into that account or you aren't. And the account pays out exactly once, all at once, in a room you'll never enter, in the precise amount you put in. So here's the thing to do something with today, while the number's still moving. You are, right now, at whatever rung you're on, deciding the size and the composition of that room. Not with your money, with your hours. Every unhurried hour you give someone for no reason is a person in that lot who's there for you and not for your title. Every hour the climb eats is an empty seat. Or worse, a seat filled by someone checking their phone. You won't be there to count the cars. That's the deal. It's the one number about your life you don't get to see. But you're setting it right now, this afternoon, in how you spend the hour you're about to spend next. Not the big gestures, not the money you'll leave, or the thing you'll build, or the grand provision you're planning to make once you've climbed high enough to make it. The ordinary hour. The call you could make instead of clearing the inbox. The friend you could actually see instead of liking their photo. The evening you could waste on purpose with someone for no productive reason at all. That's the deposit. It's small and it's boring, and it never feels like it's doing anything, which is exactly why almost nobody makes it, and exactly why the rooms get emptier as the accounts get fuller. The man at zero filled the room without meaning to. You have more than he did, which means you have to mean to. Because the money that makes your funeral bigger is the exact same money that makes it emptier. And the only thing that ever filled a room was the thing you can't buy, given away, for free, back when you had the time. Count the cars. You still get to decide how many. And you get to decide something the count alone won't show. How many of them are wet-faced and how many are just present. The man at zero didn't try to fill a room. He just never stopped showing up for people, and the room filled itself, honestly, with the exact weight of grief he'd earned. You have more than he did. That's the whole trap and the whole opportunity in one sentence. More money means a bigger potential room and a thinner default one, which means you're the only person on this entire ladder who has to do it deliberately. To protect the wasted hour on purpose against a life that will spend every year trying to optimize it away. He filled the room by accident. You'll have to fill it on purpose. But the currency is identical, and it's still for sale nowhere, and you still have some of it left this afternoon.